JC, is anyone
My
else
hair is
on
my hair is the kind that the longer it gets, the worse it looks. I actually just got it cut back here.
Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Malinowski. I know one or two more people are rolling in here, but I'm just briefly going to chat today about my mobile app, Prolific Fitness, and I appreciate JC letting me come in to chat. Obviously it's a developer meetup, so most of your talks are very code specific, very technical. Myself talking for about 15 minutes or so. I'm a little bit more on the other end of the spectrum in that I'm a non-technical founder, and I built the app with my developer friend who is technical, so just bear with me, keep that in mind for context as I'm going through and chatting for a few. Just to overview what I'm going to chat about today, super briefly about me. I don't want to talk too much about that, just for like 30 seconds or so, just to give you context on my background. Secondly, I just want to talk about the origins of why we built the app and what purpose does it serve. Obviously, there's thousands of apps being launched every week, every day. What's the reason and need for it in the world? Why would people want to use it? Third part, I just want to talk about some of the challenges we faced throughout building it, from concept wireframes all the way through to present day of where it sits. And lastly, biggest roadblocks the app has moving forward. And at the spot right now where I want to try to identify and find a technical co-founder moving forward. So just really want to ask some questions, get your insight from your perspective. So first thing, really briefly, just about me. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I'm sure I have a weird accent, so you're probably like, where the heck's he from? But I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, which is a stone's throw away from Canada. A lot of snow up there. I recently moved to Hattiesburg. My wife's a professor there at USM, so that's what brought me down to this area. I currently also play professional ice hockey overseas in Europe, so I spend half the year there and half the year in Hattiesburg. So I've lived in Poland, Denmark, Belgium, Latvia for a while, a few other places, and I'm only playing one more season, and then I'm going to reside in Hattiesburg full-time moving forward. And just for context, 2 years ago I had hip surgery, so couldn't do any sports for a year and a half, so I was the lead marketing director for Earning 5000 out in Tucson, Arizona. So I'm not a developer at all, but I'm comfortable. I had to deal with a lot of front-end, back-end developers, work with graphic designers, so in that role I gained a good amount of experience. So no more talking about me. Just want to dive into the project. What is Prolific Fitness? In the project itself, it's pretty much, in short, without diving too much into it, it's a personal trainer on your phone. So what the app does is, normally someone will go to a gym, work out with a personal trainer, and pay, say, $50 or $75, $80 an hour. Our app replicates that experience via a mobile app. So we charge $39.99. We're still toying around with the price, but that's the basic premise for it. So instead of just talking about it, I'm just going to show you a really quick 30-second app preview video just to give you a little bit of a really quick visual on it. Oopsies.
There's another option altogether. Introducing Prolific Fitness. We bring your personal training to you. Your trainer bases your custom weekly workout plan around
I don't think it's going to it.
workout environment and current activity level. Choose which days you work out. Have 24/7 messaging directly with your trainer. Video sharing so you can share your exercises and your trainer can evaluate them directly from your phone at your time.
So sorry about the audio on that. I'm sure you're like, what the heck was it saying? But I couldn't sync it to that, so it was just playing on there. But let me just exit out of here real quick. So there's the preview, 30 seconds of the app, so you can kind of get a visual for it. So next part I want to kind of dive into is the origins of why we even built this app. There's so many fitness apps out there. Some are very hands-on and very one-on-one. Others are just, hey, we'll give you some exercises, have fun, do it on your own. So the origins of why we built the app is my close friend Brandon and I. He runs a gym in upstate New York, and I've been friends with him for a little bit over a decade. He has his master's in exercise physiology. He's nationally certified and has trained a lot of people over the years. He was telling me, as I was his client, that he was having a problem where a lot of people would come in to work out with a trainer for, say, a month, 2 months, or some people wouldn't even come in at all because it wasn't feasible for them to be able to afford a trainer at $70 an hour. So what we were discussing was, how can we replicate this experience in a very personal manner? So when someone goes in to work out with someone in a gym setting, a trainer can look at them and say, hey, I need to correct how you're performing push-ups or whatever exercise it might be. So we're like, well, how can we try to replicate that as closely as possible in a more affordable way? So I didn't have a lot of budget to work with, so I'm like, well, there's no way, obviously you as developers know, the last thing you would want is someone that's not a developer to come to you and say, hey, I have this great idea. Because you hear that all too often. Like an idea, not to be blunt, but an idea doesn't mean crap really. It's if you can try to create a working prototype and validate that it's actually an idea. So I was thinking, I'm like, based on my budget, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get anyone in North America to be able to work on it. So when I was in Europe, I met at a meetup a close friend of mine now. His name is Kim-sun, and he's located in the Philippines. He lives there with his wife. So I talked to him. I was like, well, I know you told me over the last 6 months we've been chatting that the cost of living is way lower there than it is here. So I said, what would work for you, or like what price point would work for you to be able to build this app with me and do a monthly retainer to keep it running up until I can validate the idea. So we came up with a price and made it work. So Kim-sun worked on the app. I saw a lot of his previous apps, so I'm like, okay, I know he can build legitimate apps. And that's kind of how the process started. And I knew, based on where I was at, there was no way I was going to build the app without going this route. So obviously, moving forward, it's not feasible to keep having that technical aspect being remote, but to be able to get the product into the world, I knew this was a good first step. So pretty much the layout functionality, not being a developer, I just did all the basic InVision wireframes for all the different screens on the apps, and then Kim-sun built the app. So the left side is obviously just basic wireframes, stuff like that, and then on the right is just 2 quick screenshots of the app itself. The app is a Ruby application. The app itself is built in Xamarin, so it's both for iOS and Android. We use Stripe integration for our payments since it's a monthly subscription app, and it's pretty backwards compatible. And moving forward, I don't need I'm not so worried about the older devices, so that doesn't have to be as strict moving forward with the language and stuff. But obviously the top right is the admin, the web app portion. So this is what the trainers, my friend Brandon and I, we use to communicate with users. So we can create workouts in there, we can message with users directly, publish workouts, and do a lot of other stuff. And then obviously it's just that the app on the front is what the users are using to communicate with us. So that's just kind of the basic premise. I know I'm not diving too much into it, but I don't want to bore you with my lack of knowledge in that regard. But these are just a few more screens of the app. There's a video database, so there's hundreds of exercises that we've recorded over time with descriptions that give users the ability to see exercises as they're doing them. We store them via Google Cloud Storage, and then they're pulled in so users can view them. Middle screen's just there for a visual. On the right side here is, I thought it would be really cool to create a video capture feature, so a user could set their phone down and they could perform an exercise and send it to us. The video gets compressed, and then it sends to us within the admin to look at how they're performing exercises. But what I've realized from having a decent amount of users so far is users really don't like using that feature, and I think it's just a comfort thing. Nobody wants to sit at their house and set their phone down and perform an exercise. More often than not, users just go to the message portion and they just say, hey, I have a quick question. So that's some interesting feedback that I thought when I built the feature. I'm like, oh, this is going to be amazing. But I learned pretty quickly that no one really cares about that. They'd rather just send a message if they have a question. So third part that I want to dive into just a little bit is just some of the basic challenges that we faced since building it. There's obviously some micro ones and some macro ones. The macro one of them I already mentioned, being location. The developer I built it with, he recently, a few months ago, took a position at another place. So right now, he's just working on it, at nighttime when we chat in evenings or on weekends whenever we link up to make sure we're doing app updates. And that's not really a win-win moving forward. I can't have me worrying about if something goes down, I'm dependent on him. I need to find someone that is able to work on it with me to be able to, it's just not a long-term solution to be able to actually grow the app as it gets more users. So that's a macro challenge that we faced, and obviously with that, the speed, ability to iterate on some different things, that's kind of, it's more of a standstill as of now. I'll dive into some of the micro issues we faced since launching the app. First one being messaging. So the in-app messaging, for a while, we had some issues where the app was up and running for a while, and I kept encountering issues where I would be messaging a user and the server would be going down, and then I would chat with Kim Sun, my friend, and we were just kept having issues over a course of, like, it was like every other week we were having an issue with the messaging, and it's really bad when you have an app that communication is really important. So I would have to email users and tell them, hey, sorry the messaging's down, it'll be up tomorrow. So he updated the app to use Action Cable. Since then, we did that about a year ago, just as we were taking on paying users. And since then, the app messaging has been really fluid and great. There really haven't been too many issues. So that's just one thing, pretty basic. Another challenge is just really making sure that users are having a good experience. Obviously, myself not being, I'm not a graphic designer or developer, I'm really trying to give users a good user experience, even though the app isn't really super robust itself. One thing I implemented last November, which being like 5 months ago or so, is a fitness assessment into the app. Before, it was old school in that when a user signed up, I had it auto send them an Aweber email with a link to a video, and then they had to go through a fitness assessment and then message me back the results, which is stupid because if you're using an application, you should stay in the application the whole time. So after I implemented this in, it drastically improved people's experience. So when they signed up for the app, they would answer some basic questions, answer this stuff to kind of let us know where their fitness level was at, and it just improved the overall experience. But obviously, it's a work in progress. I haven't had any graphic designers work on the app yet. Obviously, down the road when that's feasible to do that, the user experience and interface itself will improve. But that's just where that sits now. And then this is just another thing that I was just working on this past week. I have an issue right now that it'll probably be done the start of next week. It's just we're updating the Facebook SDK because the old one, it was outdated. So we're just working on that. And I actually honestly prefer when people sign up manually, because if people sign up via Facebook for the app, it uses an old email address of theirs and inputs into our system, and I'd rather have their primary email, but that's just a small thing. So after that, really just the biggest roadblocks that the app faces is really the main part that I already mentioned, which is I want to, moving forward, I kind of just want to ask some questions of you and just try to see, based on where the app sits now, what a good potential way to go about finding a technical co-founder would be. I already knew that there was no chance in hell that I would even, remotely get a developer to even be enticed in the idea when I was in that concept phase. Now it's at a stage where we have just under 20 users paying about $39.99 a month, and I still need to grow it a bit more before I think it'll be a little bit more enticing, but I think that I brought it to a point as far as I can for being non-technical. So I really just want to, moving forward, I just want to kind of eventually move into having a developer. And the last part was just the same thing. I validated the idea. I have a functioning app in both stores. Validated it with a small paying user base. Most of the users are using it about 5-6 times a week. You might think there's a messaging feature where there's 24/7 messaging. So someone asked a little bit ago when I was chatting, they're like, well, do people just ping you all the time and ask questions? That's not going to be profitable. And the reality is that most people don't. You get from some users will just use the app and not message you, and a few will message maybe 1 or 2 times a week with an easy question. So it's not anything that's, I'm not losing money based on that. But just really lastly, I just want to open it up, and I appreciate you listening to me for a few minutes. And I just want to kind of get a little insight or maybe a suggestion, whether it be now or maybe you're in the Meetup group and a week from now you're like, hey, maybe I can shoot him a message and give him a little advice. But just really want to see what your thoughts are on how I might be able to identify or find a technical co-founder, whether it be now or in maybe 3 to 4 months when it's a little bit bigger. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Oh,
How can they find you?
What?
How can they find you?
My email address is ryan@prolificfitness.com, but I'll just shoot a comment in the notes on the Meetup thing. I don't want to be like salesy or anything, but it's Ryan at prolificfitness.com, and I always have my phone on me, so, yeah.
Ryan, does no one use the video feature that you spoke about
Yeah.
earlier? The reason is because that seems what would bridge the gap between the in-person experience and the mobile experience.
Yeah.
Like when I worked with a trainer, there were a couple of particular exercises until someone had their eyes on me, I couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that as it grows, you will receive more video as more people make the switch from in-person training to using your application?
Yeah, I think that it's there's kind of two sides of the spectrum there, because what my close friend Brandon, he's very much a stickler on all of like making sure that obviously form is key. You know, you're not gonna have someone that comes to you and is injury prone, and you're not gonna have them doing some complex Olympic lift and being like, hey, good luck, have fun with that type of thing. You're gonna start them out with some different movements based on what their current activity level's at. What we do too is if some of the people that we work with haven't used the video capture feature itself, what we've had them do is, based on a few exercises, we've actually just had them use their regular phone video and email us a couple things. But moving forward, I think that there might be some other components to that of, you know, whether it be them setting their phone down and doing video, or whether it be us viewing it live somehow in the app. But it's kind of like a work in progress, and obviously it's going to change over the next couple of years. But I wasn't super direct in answering the question, but it's kind of just, I've noticed that a few people, I don't know, just they kind of use it more than others. Some people are fine and they just, their exercise, they don't need to be looked at. It's more just, hey, they're doing push-ups, and then as long as they're feeling fine, we assume that with some basic exercises, they're fine. Yep.
Are you looking for a technical co-founder, or are you looking for a local, affordable technical person?
Yes, that's a good question. I actually didn't dive into that. I'm eventually looking for someone that would more be coming on as I start to get a few more users, someone that would be coming on for more of an equity situation, where it's like a part-time type thing where they come on with even equity as me and kind of build it together. So whoever I find for that, as opposed to just hiring and just hoping like, hey, I have to call them when